One more little thing from the Eugene Field book, and then I'm going to tell you something about him. This one is called Seeing Things. I ain't afeard of snakes or toads or bugs or worms or mice, and things that girls are scared of I think are awful nice. I'm pretty brave, I guess, and yet I hate to go to bed, for when I'm tucked up warm and snug, and when my prayers are said, Mother tells me happy dreams and takes the light away and leaves me lying all alone and seeing things at night. Sometimes they're in the corner, sometimes they're by the door, sometimes they're all a-standing in the middle of the floor. Sometimes they are a-sitting down, sometimes they're walking round, so softly and so creepy-like they never make a sound. Sometimes they are as black as ink, and other times they're white. But the color ain't no difference when you're seeing things at night. Once when I looked a feller that had just moved on our street, and Father sent me up to bed without a bite to eat, I woke up in the dark and saw things standing in a row, a-looking at me cross-eyed and a-pinting at me so. Oh my, I was so scared that I never slept a mite. It's almost always when I'm bad I see things at night. Lucky thing I ain't a girl, or I'd be scared to death. Being a boy, I duck my head and hold my breath. And I am oh so sorry I'm a naughty boy, and then I promise to be better and I say my prayers again. Grandma tells me that's the only way to make it right, when a feller has been wicked and sees things at night. And so when other naughty boys would coax me into sin, I'd try to squash the temper's voice that urges me within. And when they's pie for supper, or cakes that's big and nice, I want to, but I do not pass my plate to them that sings twice. No, rather let starvation wipe me slowly out of sight than I should keep a living on seeing things at night. Now then, as I said, I am going to tell you a little about Eugene Field. Don't you just get real curious when you read about somebody, all their poems and everything, and you wonder about, well, what kind of a man wrote all those things? Now here's what Eugene Field says about himself. He says, I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, September the 3rd, 1850. The second and oldest surviving son of Roswell Martin and Francis Reed Field, both natives of Windham County, Vermont. Well, now we know where he was born, huh? Well, he goes on to say, though, that his mother died and his father died, and he was raised by an aunt at Amherst, Massachusetts. And he went to Williams College, and he entered the Knox College at Galesburg, Illinois, and he went to Columbia, Missouri, and entered the State University there, and completed the junior year with his brother. And in 1872, he visited Europe, spending 6 months in France, Italy, Ireland, and England. Then in May of 1873, he became a reporter on the St. Louis Evening Journal. In October of that year, he married Miss Julia Sutherland Comstock of St. Joseph, Missouri, when she was 16 years old. And he says we had 3 daughters and 5 sons. He also says that ill health compelled him to visit Europe in 1889, and there he remained for 14 months, being dividing his time between England, Germany, Holland, and Belgium. And at the time he wrote this, he said he was living in the North Shore suburb of Chicago. And he says, I have a miscellaneous collection of books numbering 3,500. I am fond of the quaint and the curious in every line. I'm very fond of dogs, birds, and all such small pets, a passion not approved of by my wife. My favorite flower is the carnation, and my favorites in fiction are Hawthorne's Scarlet Letter and Pilgrim's Progress, and I greatly love Hans Christian Andersen's tales. And I'm deeply interested in folklore and fairy tales. I believe in ghosts and witches and in fairies. I would like to own a big astronomical telescope, a 24-tune music box, and I adore dolls. My heroes in history are Martin Luther, Madame Lamballe, Abraham Lincoln, and my favorite poems are Corner's Battle Prayer, Wadsworth's We Are Seven, Newman's Lead Kindly Light, Luther's Hymn, Schiller's The Diver. And he goes on and on some more. He says, though, that I dislike Dante and Brian, and I would like to have known Jeremiah the prophet, Horace, Walter Scott, Old Man Poggio, Bonaparte, Hawthorne, and so on. I dislike politics, so I should like to have privilege of voting extended to women, and I am opposed to capital punishment. I favor a system of pensions for noble services in literature, art, science, and so forth. I approve of compulsory education. I believe in churches and schools. I hate wars, armies, guns, and fireworks. If I could have my way, I should make the abuse of horses, dogs, and cattle a penal offense. I should abolish all dog laws and dog catchers, and I would punish severely everybody who caught and caged up birds. Then he says, I love to read in bed. I am extravagantly fond of perfumes. My favorite color is red. I'm a poor diner, and I drink no wine or spirits of any kind. I do not smoke tobacco. I dislike crowds, and I dominate functions. I am 6 feet in high, am spare of build, weighing 160 pounds, and have shocking taste in dress, but I like to have well-dressed people about me. Well, he also goes on to say, my eyes are blue, my complexion is pale, my face is shaven, and I incline to baldness. It is only when I look to see how young and fair and sweet my wife is that I have a good opinion of myself. I am fond of the companionship of women, and I have no unconquerable prejudice against feminine beauty. I recall with pride that in 22 years of active journalism, I have always written in reverential praise of womankind. I believe that if I live, I shall do my best literary work when I am a grandfather. Wouldn't you just as a notable feature in Mr. Field was his love of toys, especially dolls. And one day, a lady says, I went with him to the toy store to get some things for the babies, and as he rarely went home empty-handed. And after he had purchased several things, he ordered a dozen medium-sized dolls. And I wondered what he was going to do with so many, and asked him. And he answered, oh, I like to have them, and when little girls come to see me, I can give them a dolly to take home. He gave a worsted doll and a little fat rubber doll to Dorothy Cable, age 4, one time when she came to see Mr. Field, and she named one of them Mr. Field and one of them Eugene. Not only did he give away dolls, but he gladly received them, and in this book there is a picture of part of his doll collection. And so you see, it was a nice man that gave us all of these poems and little stories that have been treasured by a lot of people all down through the years and forgotten by a lot. But with this little tape, you can remember them, and maybe you'll run across some of his poems and books other places, and you'll remember, oh, that's the man Grandma was talking about. Yes, he was a pretty nice man. But then I've liked some poems. I just loved The Raven, and that was, I found out, that the author of that poem and the other stories I liked by him was not such a nice man. His name was Edgar Allan Poe, and I guess he was halfway insane, such a brilliant man that he was, but perhaps he was on dope, or who knows. They know he was on liquor and so forth, but that's another story, and I'll tell you about The Raven maybe later on in this tape. That was one of my very favorite poems when I was little, and I'd have to ask Grandma Miller, I'd have to ask Grandma Anderson and my mother how to pronounce the words. But I memorized that poem when I was very young. The Raven. I can't remember much of it anymore. Let's see, it goes. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember brought its ghosts upon the floor. Suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at the chamber door. "'Tis the wind, and nothing more," quoth the Raven, "nevermore." Something like that is the way it went. I feel sorry for little kids whose mamas and daddies don't take time to read them little stories and don't have little books around for them to read, don't teach them really how to read. And there's a whole lot of them that way. Their mamas and their daddies, they don't like to read themselves, and so they don't bother to read to their kids. That's a shame. Now, you know, when you go to school, you learn a lot of things, but it's a means to an end, and if you miss the end, you miss the most part of the value. And so, you want to learn, you go to school to learn to read, but if you learn to read, and then never do read, you've missed the whole point. And then, too, you got to know what to read, because if you just read old bad things and old vicious things, things like that, it's better that you never even learn how to read at all. Now, while I'm on the subject of old books and things, I want to read you something that I used to read over and over and over from my daddy's, Willie Wiley Anderson's, McGuffey's Fifth Reader. And it goes like this. I think this is so funny, and you will too, Amber. It's How to Tell Bad News. Mr. H. Hi, Steward, how are you, my boy? How do things go on at home? Steward. Bad enough, Your Honor, the magpie's dead. H. Poor magpie, so he's gone. How came he to die? Overeat himself, sir. Did he? A greedy dog. Why, what did he get that he liked so well? Horseflesh, sir. He died of eating horseflesh. How came he to get so much horseflesh? All your father's horses, sir. What, are they dead too? Sir, they died of overwork. And why were they overworked, pray? To carry water, sir. To carry water? What were they carrying water for? Sure, sir, to put out the fire. Fire? What fire? Oh, sir, your father's house is burned to the ground. My father's house burned down, and how came it to be set on fire? I think, sir, it must have been the torches. Torches? What torches? At your mother's funeral. My mother dead? Ah, poor lady, she never looked up after it. After what? The loss of your father. My father gone too? Yes, poor gentleman, he took to his bed as soon as he heard of it. Heard of what? The bad news, sir, and please your honor. What? More miseries? More bad news? Yes, sir, your bank has failed, and your credit is lost, and you're not worth a shilling in the world. I made bold, sir, to wait on you about it, for I thought that you would like to hear the news. I've always liked to read signs, and in about 1926 and 27, they started having signs by the side of the road, and they just have a few words, and the next sign would have another one, and so on. It was the Burma Shave Company, and it was such things that say, he played, and then the next sign would say, a sax, and then the next one would say, had no B.O., the next one would say, but his whiskers scratched, and the last one, or the next one would say, so she let him go. And then there'd be one that'd say, it's not toasted, it's not dated, but look out, it's imitated. And they got to be real funny, like, your husband misbehaved, grunt and grumble, rant and rave, shoot the brute some Burma shave. Or the answer to a maiden's prayer is not a chin of stubby hair. And one of them was, his face was smooth and cool as ice, and oh Louise, he smelled so nice. And that went on for a number of years, and you'd be surprised how many of those signs we saw along the road. Whiskers, easy come, you know. Why not make them easy go? Burma shave. I've read these signs since just a kid. Now that I shave, I'm glad I did. Burma shave. The minute some folks save through speed, they never even live to need. Burma shave. Paper hangers with the hives now can shave with carving knives. Burma shave. Tube of mints, still 35 cents. Easy shaving, low expense. Burma shave. Candidate says, campaign confusing, babies kiss me since I've been using Burma shave. My job is keeping faces clean, and nobody knows the stubble I see. Vermicelli. A whiskery kiss for the one you adore may not make her mad, but her face will be sore. Vermicelli. On curves ahead, remember, Sonny, that rabbit's foot didn't save the bunny. Vermicelli. Slow down, Pa, sakes alive. Mom missed signs 4 and 5. Vermicelli. Grandpa knows it ain't too late. He's gone to get some winter bait. Vermicelli. Free, a trip to Mars for 900 empty jars. Vermicelli. A Christmas hug, a birthday kiss awaits the woman who gives this. Vermicelli. The monkey took one look at Jim and threw the peanuts back at him. He needed vermicelli. We used to go for little rides and stuff and read those signs, and they finally got the people driving so fast and traffic so heavy that it was paying off, I guess. Anyway, they finally stopped it. But I've got a whole book that Colette gave me one year, and it sure is nice. It's called The Verse by the Side of the Road, and it tells the entire story of Vermicelli, how it started. It was just a family project, and it was very interesting. So you see, I like to read anything. I even like to read signs, but especially did I like to read those signs. Teachers today don't have to ask where everybody spent their vacations. All they've got to do is read the kids' T-shirts. And another little thing says, he has overactive reflexes. When you pat him on his back, his head swells. Well, I guess that's right. It says, when you argue with a fool, 2 fools are arguing, so watch out. The fool says what he knows, and the wise man knows what he says. I've been hunting for a special poem for years. It used to be in our 5th graders, 7th graders, some kind of reader, and I've never seen it anyplace else. So all the time I was up to your Auntie Helen's, I was looking for that book and never found it anyplace. All I could remember about it was high on the hilltop, the old king sits. Well, anyway, Lita, she bought me a book today of poems. And the first thing when I opened it up was this one I'd been looking for, The Fairies. Up the airy mountain and down the rushing glen, we daren't go a-hunting for fear of little man. We folk, good folk, trooping all together, green jacket, red cap, and white owl's feather. Down along the rocky shore some make their home. They live on crispy pancakes of yellow tide foam. Some in the reeds of the black mountain lake, with frogs for their watchdogs all night awake. High on the hilltop the old king sits. He's now so old and gray, he's nigh lost his wits. With a bridge of white mist, Columkill he crosses on his stately journeys from Silver League to Ross's, or going up with music on cold and starry nights to sup with the queen of the gay northern lights. By the craggy hillsides through the mosses bare, they have planted thorn trees for pleasure here and there. Is any man so daring as to dig one up in spite? He shall find the thornies set in his bed at night. Up the airy mountain, down the rushing glen, we daren't go a-hunting for fear of little man. We folk, good folk, trooping all together, green jacket, red cap, and white owl's feather. And here's another one that I had forgot all about. It's called The Dinky Bird. In an ocean way out yonder, as all sapient people know, is the land of wonder wander, where the children love to go. It's their playing, romping, swinging that gives great joy to me, while the dinky bird goes singing in the ampalula tree. There the gumdrops grow like cherries, and the taffy's thick as peas, caramels you pick like berries, when and where and how you please. Big red sugar plums are clinging to the cliffs beside the sea, where the dinky bird is singing in an ampalula tree. So the children shout and scamper and make merry all the day, when there's not to put a damper to the ardent of their play. When I hear their laughter ringing, then I'm sure as sure can be that the dinky bird is singing in the ampalula tree. For the dinky bird's bravas and staccatos are so sweet, his roundelays a choreograph and robust so complete, that the youth of every nation, be they near or far away, have special declaration on that glorious dancing roundelay. Their eyes go bright and brighter, their lungs begin to crow, their hearts get light and lighter, and their cheeks are all aglow. For an echo cometh bringing the news to all and me, that the dinky bird is singing in the ampalula tree. I'm sure you'd like to go there to see your feathered friend, and so many goodies grow there you would like to comprehend. Speed, little dreams, you're winging to that land across the sea, where the dinky bird is singing in an ampalula tree. W.S. Gilmore wrote A Nightmare. Says, when you're lying awake with a dismal headache and repose is taboo by anxiety, I conceive you may use any language you choose to indulge in without impropriety. For your brain is on fire, the bedclothes conspire of usual slumber to plunder you. First your counterpane goes and uncovers your toes, and your sheet slips demurely from under you. Then the blanketing tickles, and you feel like mixed pickles, so terribly sharp is the pricking. And you're hot, and you're cross, and you tumble and toss, till there's nothing twixt you and the ticking. Then the bedclothes all creep to the ground in a heap, and you pick 'em up all in a tangle. Next your pillow resigns and politely declines to remain at its usual angle. Well, you get some repose in the form of a doze, with hot eyeballs and head ever aching, but your slumbering teems with such horrible dreams that you'd better very much be waking. You're a regular wreck with a creak in your neck, and no wonder you snore, for your head's on the floor, and you've needles and pins from your soles to your shins, and your flesh is a creep, for your left leg's asleep, and you've a cramp in your toes, and a fly on your nose, and some fluff in your lung, and a feverish tongue, and a thirst that's intense, and a general sense that you haven't been sleeping in clover. But the darkness has passed, and it's daylight at last, and the night has been long. Ditto, ditto, my song, and thank goodness they're both of them over. Here's something else from McGuffey's Fifth Reader. Mrs. Bolingbroke. I wish I knew what was the matter with me this morning. Why do you keep the newspaper all to yourself, my dear? Mr. Bolingbroke. Here it is for you, my dear. I have finished it. Mrs. B. I humbly thank you for giving it to me when you have done with it. I hate stale news. Is there anything in the paper? For I cannot be at the trouble of hunting it. Yes, my dear, there are the 2 marriages of 2 of our friends. Mrs. B. Who? Mr. B. Your friend the widow, Netterby, and her cousin John Netterby. Mrs. B. Mrs. Netterby? Dear, why did you tell me? Because you asked me, my dear. Oh, but it's 100 times pleasanter to read the paragraph oneself. One loses all the pleasure of the surprise by being told. Well, who was the other marriage? Oh, my dear, I will not tell you. I will leave you the pleasure of the surprise. But you see, I cannot find it. How provoking you are, my dear. Do, pray tell me. Mr. B. Our friend, Mr. Ganby. Mr. Ganby, dear, why did you not make me guess? I should have guessed him directly, but why do you call him our friend? I'm sure he's no friend of mine, nor never was. I took an aversion to him, as you remember, the very first day I saw him. I'm sure he is no friend of mine. I'm sorry for it, my dear, but I hope you will go and see Mrs. Ganby. Not I, indeed, my dear. Who was she? Miss Cook. Cook? But there are so many Cooks. Can't you distinguish her anyway? Has she no Christian name? Emma, I think. Yes, Emma. Emma Cook. No, it cannot be my friend Emma Cook, for I'm sure that she was cut out for an old maid. This lady seems to be cut out for a good wife. Maybe so. I am sure I'll never go to see her. Pray, my dear, how come you to see so much of her? I have seen very little of her, my dear. I only saw her 2 or 3 times before she was married. Then, my dear, how could you decide that she was cut out for a good wife? I'm sure you could not judge of her by seeing her only 2 or 3 times and before she was married. Indeed, my love, that is a very just observation. Mrs. B. I understand that compliment perfectly, and thank you for it, my dear. I must own I can bear anything better than irony. Mr. B. Irony? My dear, I was perfectly in earnest. Yes, in earnest, so I perceive. I may naturally be dull of apprehension, but my feelings are quick enough. I comprehend too well. Yes, it is impossible to judge a woman before marriage, or to guess what sort of a wife she will make. I presume you do not speak from experience. You have been disappointed yourself and repent your choice? My dear, what did I say that was like that? Upon my word, I meant no such thing. I really was not thinking of you in the least. No, you never think of me now. I can easily believe that you were not thinking of me in the least. But I only said that to prove to you that I could not be thinking ill of you, my dear. But I would rather that you thought ill of me than that you would not think of me at all. Well, my dear, I will even think ill of you if it will please you. Do you laugh at me? When it comes to this, I'm wretched indeed. Never man laughed at the woman he loved. As long as you had the slightest remains of love for me, you could not make me an object of derision. Ridicule and love are incompatible, absolutely incompatible. Well, I've done my best, my very best, to make you happy, but in vain. I see I am not cut out to be a good wife. Happy, happy Mrs. Granby. Mr. B. Happy? I hope sincerely that she will be with my friend, but my happiness must depend on you, my love. So, for my sake, if not for your own, be composed and do not torment yourself with such fancies. Mrs. B. I do wonder whether Mrs. Granby is really that Miss Emma Cook. I'll go and see her directly. See her I must. Mr. B. I'm heartily glad of it, my dear, for I am sure a visit to his wife will give my friend Granby real pleasure. Mrs. B. I promise you, my dear, I do not go to give him pleasure, or you either, but to satisfy my own curiosity. Amber, in the honor of the start of your new baseball career, I'm going to read you Casey at the Bat, which was written in 1888 by Ernest Lawrence Thayer. This is a classic, and I got such a stopped-up throat, I bet I bobble it all up for you today. It looked extremely rocky for the Mudsville Nine that day. The score stood 4-6 with but an inning left to play. And so when Cooney died at first and Burroughs did the same, a pallor wreathed the features of the patrons of the game. A straggling few got up to go, leaving there the rest, with the hope which springs eternal within the human breast. For they thought if only Casey could get a whack at that, they'd put up even money with Casey at the bat. But Flynn preceded Casey, and likewise so did Blake, and the former was a pudding and the later was a flake. And so that stricken multitude a death-like silence sat, for there seemed but little chance of Casey's getting to the bat. But Flynn let drive a single to the wonderment of all, and the much despised Blakely tore the cover off the ball. And when the dust had lifted, and they saw what had occurred, there was Blakely safe on second, and Flynn a hugging third. Then from the gladdened multitude went up a joyous yell. It bounded from the mountain top and rattled in the dale. It struck upon the hillside and rebounded on the flat, for Casey, mighty Casey, was advancing to the bat. There was ease in Casey's manner as he stepped into his place. There was pride in Casey's bearing and a smile on Casey's face. And when responding to the cheers he lightly doffed his hat, no stranger in the crowd could doubt 'twas Casey at the bat. 10,000 eyes were on him as he rubbed his hands with dirt. 5,000 tongues applauded as he wiped them on his shirt. And while the ripping pitcher on the ground the ball, and to his hip, defiance gleamed from Casey's eyes, and a sneer curled Casey's lip. And now the leather-covered sphere came hurtling through the air, and Casey stood a-watching it in haughty grandeur there. Close by the sturdy batsman, the ball unheeded sped. "That hain't my style," said Casey. "Strike one," the umpire said. From the bleachers, black with people, there rose a sullen roar, like the beating of the storm waves on a stern and distant shore. "Kill him! Kill the umpire!" shouted someone from the stand, and it's likely they'd have done it had not Casey raised his hand. With a smile of Christian charity, great Casey's visage shone. He stilled the rising tumult as he bade the game go on. He signaled to the pitcher, and again the spheroid flew. But Casey still ignored it, and the umpire said, "Strike two." "Fraud!" yelled the maddened thousands, and the echo answered, "Fraud." But one scornful look from Casey, and the audience was awed. They saw his face grow stern and cold. They saw his muscles strain, and they knew that Casey would not let that ball go by again. The sneer is gone from Casey's lips. His teeth are clenched with hate. He pounds with cruel violence his bat upon the plate. And now the pitcher holds the ball.